These days, there are way more Iranians living abroad. And because of that, a lot of the old stereotypes are kind of fading, which is a good thing. But still, the default assumption people have is that we are all religious. And honestly, I get that. Like, with the government we have and with the way that media has portrayed us, it makes sense to me. But it's far from reality. In reality, religion has turned into this big, messy, complicated subject for us. A lot of people are even moving in the opposite direction, becoming anti religion. And I'm not saying that's necessarily good or bad, it's just the way it is now. So, just a simple idea that Iranians are religious doesn't really hold up anymore. And then there's this other thing that happens a lot. I mean, it has happened to me, and I've heard it from my Iranian friends here too. And that is when non Iranian people get a little more comfortable with you, like after a couple of drinks or in a party or whatever, they suddenly start asking these weird, strange questions. I mean, before that moment, you tell yourself that I'm making friends, I'm casually hanging out with people. But then all of a sudden, it feels like you have turned into an object for them to study, or you have been an object all along, an object in a museum, for example. You're not just you, you have become the representative of Middle Eastern women or the representative of Iran, which has 90 million people in it. And I don't I don't mind answering questions. I get the curiosity. I'm curious about other countries and cultures too. But I'd rather be seen as a person first. I'd rather people get to know me as me, not as a stereotype that they can project all their ideas about Middle East onto.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to chapter 199 of The Last Thoughts of a Busy Mind. This one titled Iran is Religious, Not in the Way You Think. At the beginning of this episode, you heard a few words from my friend, and well, let's get on with it because it's an subject I honestly didn't think about when I was thinking about this season. I usually come into this themed season having a few topics ready in case they come up or in case I don't have a guest so I can talk about them like I did last week. But this one was something that completely missed my periphery because, well, I never kind of saw it. Most of my things about Westerners looking in Iran is people online, and though religiosity does come up, it doesn't come up as much as I thought it would. Not enough to actually catch my interest. But yeah, it is actually something we need to talk about. But before we do that, my drink today is just water. Not any additives added to it. Well, not any that isn't already in water. I'm not drinking pure water. Don't drink that, it's apparently very bad for you. But yeah, let's first talk about what is Iran's religious status. Now, technically speaking, and this is very technical, Iran is a theocracy, meaning it is ruled by a religious ideology. Now, that is a little bit of a red herring because it is not really a theocracy. Allow me to explain what I mean. It is not a theocracy because being in a theocracy means you are building your government, your ideals, your power structure based on a religious doctrine. It is what Vatican is like, for example. But that is not true of Iran. Iran is not a theocracy because the ideals, the religious doctrine, and everything around it are very fluid. They can change based on the mood of the supreme leader. they literally can change. One year, we all despise our religious minorities. Another year, no, we don't. We are completely okay with them. They are our brethren after all. So, Iran is not a theocracy. It is an autocracy, meaning it is ruled over by an autocrat, the supreme leader, a dictator, and it does have a religious veneer, but that religious veneer is very good. It's not like those MDF veneers. It's actually like like a hardwood edge banding. You can sand through it for a long time before it shows the gunk below. That veneer is very, 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 very thick, but it is still a veneer. So Iran has had a turbulent relationship with its religious identity. So let me give you a quick history lesson before we go on. Iran is currently prominently Shia, at least on paper. We will get to that as well. But where did that come from? We didn't all become Shia overnight, or did we? Okay. I'm not going to get into the differences between Shia, Sunni, and all of the other sects of Islam, but just so you can have quite a easy idea, we basically believe that the governance of the religion isn't, it doesn't start with the caliph or the political leader. And we believe after the Prophet, there was an Imam, 12 of them, and the 12th one kind of went away and hasn't returned yet. It is our own version of the end times. We also have our own version of rapture and all of that. So yeah, that is the big difference. The Sunnis believe that after the Prophet, there was 4 caliphs, and then, the history as it happens. We believe that no, after the Prophet, there were 12 imams, and they were the true governors of religion. That's the big difference. Again, I am doing a criminally abridged version of that, but it's easy that you just know this. So, with that in mind, Iran became Shia during the Safavid dynasty. Basically, the Safavid dynasty's big baddie was the Ottoman Empire. Now, they needed a unifying force. They needed something so people can look at them and say, okay, this is different than the Ottoman Empire. They were both Turks, so ethnicity couldn't be the difference. So the thing that Safavid dynasty kind of grappled into was religion. Basically, religious sectionalism. So they said, we are Shia, the Ottomans are Sunni. And then they kind of conquered all of modern day Iran and a lot more, actually. So they became the ruling dynasty, and because their identity was intertwined with Shiaism, they basically said, well, everyone is now Shia. And that is the start of the Shia identity in Iran. It's not as old as you think, but it is not as recent as you think either. So that is the religious identity being introduced and kind of being enforced. Now, throughout the years, it has kind of shifted. Our version of Shia isn't, like overtly religious. We do have a lot of things that aren't overtly religious, but that also has given rise to the clerics. The clerics who believe that, well, remember I said we have a lot of things that aren't religious. Well, why is that? Everything should be religious. They actually think that. So there are a numerous number of them who have tried to assert religious authority, like the good he died, Sheikh Fazlullah Nuri. He was hanged. And the first time he was hanged, the rope broke. And it is in religious law that if the rope breaks, that means the God has kind of forgiven the guy. But nope, they strung him up again and hanged him again. Deservedly so. I fucking hate that guy. So the religious identity of Iran was, from the very beginning, kind of forced. A lot of people who believe they are Shia, they're just Shia because their dad was Shia. And that became a bit of a problem when you have a very anti-religious king like Reza Shah thought himself to be. Basically, he didn't like the outward appearances of religion. He didn't really care about the core of it. So a struggle was born between religious and non-religious, and that kind of culminated as one of the pillars, not all of them, one of the pillars of the 1979 revolution. So it's easy for people outside of Iran to look at Iranians chanting in Arabic, saying things that are kind of, they say, Islam told us to do this, and we kind of did it. And I think everyone in Iran is religious, or at some level have some sort of religiosity. And that is the, again, monolithic nature of how people like to look at Iran. It's very easy to look at Iran and look at Saudi Arabia, everywhere in Middle East, and think of them as purely religious theocracies. You look at our leaders. Our supreme leader is a cleric. Of course they are religious, right? The people in Vatican are mostly Catholic. So the answer is kind of more complex. First of all, even if you kind of give it that Iran is a theocracy, which again it isn't, it is an autocracy with a theocracy veneer. Even if it was a theocracy, Iran is not a Shia country. It's not fully Shia. It's not a 100% Shia country. We have Sunnis, especially in Sistan Balochistan. They are constantly discriminated against. We have Jewish people, we have agnostic or a-religious people, especially the people in southern southwest of Iran. And you have Zoroastrians. There are a lot of Zoroastrians, especially in the desert parts, the one I talked about last week. There is a lot of religious variety in Iran. Even within Islam, there are a lot of different religious Islamic sects in Iran. And they are part of Iranian religious identity. Some of the things we do, kind of like cultural things, are actually Zoroastrian religious practices. We just don't know them because we've been, moving away from them for the past 1400 years. So this is important to remember. Even if Iran was a theocracy, which again it isn't, it's not a prominently Shia country. It is not a 100% Shia country. It is a prominently Shia country on paper. Again, this is where we get to it. Basically, when you are born, you have a birth certificate. And in that birth certificate, you have to put a religion. Most people just put their own. Sunnis put Sunni, Shias put Shia. I, technically, according to my birth certificate and my identification, am a Shia Muslim. In reality, I'm neither. I'm an agnostic because I am basically teetering on atheism. But it's kind of hard to look at the nuances of that when you look at Iran and see basically a religious dominance. And a lot of things in Iran do get their justification from religion. The hijab law takes its justification from religion. The death penalty takes its justification from religion. But again, a lot of things that should take their justification from religion just don't. Iran is a traditionalist country as well. And a lot of it just came because it's tradition. It's not in the fucking religion. So again, it's an autocracy. This is why I say this is important. When you look at Iran from outside and you want to put it in a monolith, calling it a religious country makes it sound more sinister, Makes it sound like, oh, if you can liberate them the way America liberated Afghanistan and Iraq, well, if you just took away that pesky religion, things will be okay. And that is not right. It is very simplistic and actually does put you very neatly in another camp. Truth is, even if Iran tomorrow, the supreme leader says, I'm denouncing Islam, things will not change. The justification will change, but the control over women's autonomy, controls over population, controls over ideology, the economics, And everything in between, their control over culture will remain, because that's what they want. They want the control. Religion just gives them an easy out. And it's an easy out when people outside of Iran look at Iranians and say, okay, these are religious people, and so they kind of want it. And that is untrue. A lot of people my age in Iran are no longer religious, in a sense that they don't do prayer, they don't do fasting, they don't do any of that, but they still have a hard time calling, saying bad things about God and Prophet, because it is kind of drilled into us. So you look at that and you feel like, okay, they are religious, and based on their religious beliefs, it is okay that a dictator is ruling over them. Because, well, it's in their religion. And that is not right. Again, putting any group of people into any monolithic category makes you dehumanize them. Putting them in a religious category makes you demonize them as well, especially for a lot of Western people who have their own issues with Islamophobia and all of that. If everyone in Middle East tomorrow became atheists, and I do mean like hardcore atheists, fuck God and all of that, the situation will not change. The justifications will change. And it's important to remember that. It's important to remember that what we have here isn't a religious theocracy. It's an autocracy. It's people exerting control over us, not because it's in our religion to let them, or it's because of their religious justification. It's because they want power. They want the power they have. Religion gives them the justification. Tomorrow there is no religion. Well, it's tradition. Tradition gives us the justification to tell people to wear hijabs. Well, tomorrow, we can be progressive enough that there isn't any traditionalism in Iran. Well, it's scientific. The sun gives you cancer if you're a woman and you have your hair. It's the same things you can see in people in America right now. They're dealing with their own version of fascism. By the way, welcome to the club. And hope to see you do better than we did in our historical struggles. But, fuck you as well. Because you guys bombed us and chewed it. Sorry, that was needlessly antagonistic. I know the the American people are not the American government. I know that the same way Iranian people aren't the Iranian government. But, do better, America, just in general, please. And you can see it there. They want the religious justification because it's easy. Religious justification is just easy. God said so. And we have to do what God said so. But if you're living outside of Iran and looking into Iran, first of all, Iranians have religion baked into their culture. Certain religious practices are just baked into our culture, and it's kind of, for example, wearing black during mourning, or in the funerals. That's just a religious ideal being baked into the culture. And you can look at them and say they are religious. There are people in Iran who are religious, but that's not the point. The point is looking at it and putting it in a monolithic category again, saying they are religious. Iran is religious, but not in the way you think. Iran is a dictatorship, using religion as an easy justification to do harm. If tomorrow none of Iranians were religions, things wouldn't change. Because that's what they want. They want the power. Religion just gives them an easy out. So remember that when you want to talk to Iranian about their religious beliefs. A lot of them aren't religious. A lot of them are not even Muslims. So yeah, if you want to help, don't look at them and say, oh, they are religious, thus we need to work within their framework. No, this is an autocracy. This is an autocracy.